What's up, everyone? The stock market had a pretty decent day today, but wait until tomorrow happens. We are set for a lot of extra volatility as we have some important events going on in the market. In today's video, we're going to talk about everything you need to know going into tomorrow, some of the best setups in the stock market right now, and towards the end of the video, we have nearly $1 million trade that you won't want to miss. But Tom, looking at the stock market today, it was mostly positive. We saw a decent amount of green movement across the entire, I guess you could say, market. So what's going on and what do we need to know about?
Yeah, we actually had a nice uptrend today ahead of the CPI data coming out tomorrow. So as we've been talking about, there's going to be a lot of inflation data coming out in the morning, 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. But before I get into this, Mike, we had a lot of upwards movement today into this, which honestly caught me by surprise. I kind of expected some choppy movement, maybe in that same range from Friday, or even just a smaller move than we had here. We actually had a pretty decent move, and we actually ran all the way up into that resistance right around like 412 to 413, and then there's another overhead resistance I'm looking for tomorrow around 414.50 to $15. But Mike, this is going to be a humongous report tomorrow with the inflation data. So it looks like they're actually expecting a nice drop here around like 0.2 to 0.3% on the overall inflation rate, and even the core rate, they're expecting a small drop as well. So that's good to see. I'm just curious if the market's going to be looking at this like, hey, even though there's a drop, it looks like it's kind of slowing down. Like we can see the past two times we had 0.6 percentage points move to the downside. Now we're only having like a 0.2 to 0.3% expectation. So I'm curious if we end up coming in around that or a little bit worse, we might actually see the market tank down a little bit. And I've been seeing a lot of articles trying to cause a lot of fear lately as well.
Yeah, so we all know how rampant inflation has been over the past year, and inflation data, I would argue, is some of the most important data to the stock market right now. And we get that reading, just like Tom said, tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens. And then also, just like Tom said, inflation has been, very high, but it's been coming down over, the past couple months. But, it's still high overall. So right now, the expectation is for the inflation data to come in between like 6.2 to 6.3%. Realistically, if the inflation rate comes in like higher than 6.3%, that'll most likely bring in some extra selling pressure into the market. But then again, if maybe this data comes in a lot lower than expected, maybe like, maybe 5.8% or 5.7%, that could be really good for the market. But at the same time, Tom, I might just be, this just might be like wishful thinking, hoping for like a 5.7% reading.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we'll get down that low, but hey, it could happen. I hope it does, honestly, because it'll show that inflation's falling down a lot more than expected. And, I'm really hoping the market can move up, especially whenever I look at the SPY on the daily chart. We've been really starting to break out above that key trend line. And if we can hold here and get this good reading, it might finally be what we need to like push us on that next leg back to the upside. So I'm really hoping for a good reading, Mike, but I have a feeling that the market might digest this if it comes in like right around the expectation. They might digest this as, maybe it's not falling quick enough because, the feds keep saying that they're talking about keeping rates around 25 basis points for a while this year. And they talk about, they keep saying that they're going to react to the data. Powell, the last time he spoke, he actually reiterated that they were going to react to the data. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And that's why it's going to sway, I think, the market in a big way, because if this ends up coming in a crazy way, it's going to change the way the feds are looking at inflation. And they might raise, they might go from 25 basis points up to 50 basis points, or they might talk about scaling back from 25 basis points back down to nothing if inflation's falling quick enough. But it's kind of weird because we've had jobs numbers coming in well recently too. So it's been a very strange economic situation because, usually in times of recession, you have bad jobs numbers, but that's been the big thing here. The jobs numbers have been like the big outlier, I feel like.
Yeah, well, unemployment is still very low, so we will see what happens. But Tom, I know a bunch of people are looking at the stock market right now, and it's like, yes, it's moving to the upside in a decent way, but it's not like I guess you could say as crazy as we saw a couple weeks ago with all those major earnings reports. What's your take on just the market overall right now? Any important levels or basically anything else?
Yeah, so right now I feel like today was just another day. I don't want to say it's a consolidation day because we were green, but what I will say is that we just ran up into like the same range from last week. Like we still stayed under 415, 416. We're still under that. We're kind of like right around 412, which was kind of like the median of last week, I'd say. So looking at the market here, I feel like we just are almost like coiling here, if that makes sense, up into this event. And we just need to see how this event goes to see maybe if we're going to start to fall back down and maybe retest 400, or if we're going to start to get that solid breakout. And I'm hoping that we get that solid breakout. But a big level I would say to watch for in the short term for a breakout would be right around 414.50 to 415. Over the past week or so, I've seen this area has been a huge area of resistance. So I'd watch that. And then there was even this big area of resistance back at the beginning of February, up around 417 to 418. So watch those areas even overhead above this. But it's a crazy market out there, Mike, and it's all going to depend on that inflation data tomorrow, on which way we're going to swing. But I really feel like that we've just been kind of coiling here up at the top because we got that big breakout on the daily. And, it's like we just haven't really been moving too much the past 5 days or so.
Yeah, I feel ya. And let's say the data comes in really bad tomorrow. What are some of like the main levels to look at for the SPY to the downside?
Yeah, so to the downside, if we do end up falling down, there is a big support recently around 408, and there's also a big one around 410 to 411. So 411 was a good intraday level today, but I would say if this comes in bad tomorrow, we'll probably gap down a little bit in pre-market. So keep that in mind that we'll probably have a big pre-market move, but I'll be watching 410 as a big support and then 408 under that. Now, if we break that in pre-market, I'll start to look for a more significant sell-off. There is some support around like 405 and 404, but I really feel like that if we start to break this big 408 level, which is where I think the majority of the price action was on a lot of these hits to the downside, then I think that we'll start to sell back off towards 400 even and possibly test that. I'll tell you, Mike, I think that there's a big possibility this comes in bad and we retest 400 just because of all the fear creeping in. And then obviously, like they're expecting that inflation reading to slow down a little bit from the last time. So hopefully it doesn't slow down too much.
Yeah, so we will see. Shifting more towards the positive side of things, we actually had a stock report earnings today in after hours, one that we follow a decent amount, and that is Palantir. And this stock is actually ripping to the upside, which is awesome to see. Tom, fill us in on their earnings.
Yeah, so this was great. They actually had an amazing earnings report here, and they actually had some great statements from Alex Karp, the co-founder and the CEO right now of Palantir. They said, with tonight's results, pretty much, Palantir is profitable. That is a big statement there. So pretty much the big thing, Mike, is that their GAAP net income actually came in positive for the very first time at $31 million. So congratulations to Palantir. And hey, congratulations to Palantir shareholders for sticking it out. It's been a tough year. And for all the long-term holders out there, hopefully this is exactly what Palantir needs to start kicking off another major uptrend back to the upside. But that's just so amazing to get all of these great numbers coming in. And then we're also getting great statements from the CEO, Alex Karp, as well, saying they're profitable. And he had a bunch of other statements as well. But it's just great to see. And even revenue on a year-over-year basis grew 18%. So great to see there too.
Yeah, not too many companies have their revenue growing, 18% year over year. So that's absolutely awesome to see. And I love it when growth companies turn profitable, because not all of them end up doing that, and it takes years in a lot of cases to, hit that profitability mark. I mean, it was just a couple of years ago that even Tesla became profitable. So it's always awesome to see situations like this. And I love to see this movement with Palantir too. And I'm so excited to see what Palantir looks like in, 3, 5, and 10 years from now.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this thing's jumping up right now like 22% from the closing price. So that is insane, Mike. They are really flying up here in after hours. So keep them on the radar for the next couple days. But really, that is amazing that they are finally becoming profitable. So congratulations to them and all of their shareholders But Mike, there was actually a lot of great setups in the market today. I will say there was a lot of stocks moving up, and one of my favorites was Boeing. And I will say they had a pretty nice high of day here, right around like 216 to 216.35. If we can start to break that again back to the upside, I will watch for a nice push up. And what I like about Boeing is up here in the top right, their correlation to the SPY is only at 0.52, which means they're not very correlated. So they can actually move around a little bit more, I would say, on a day where CPI is going to affect the overall market. Boeing might still move on their own news or something like that. And that does make me like them for tomorrow, considering all the crazy stuff going on.
Perfect. A stock I will be watching pretty closely is CSX. So I do not talk about this stock too often. CSX, it is a shipping company, basically rail. They're in the rail industry. And basically what's going on is there's a lot of these rail stocks that are starting to get relatively weak right now. CSX actually has a pretty decent support right around $31. I also saw a decent amount of put buying, not only on CSX, but other rail stocks as well. So I'm definitely watching CSX for a potential day trade to like the downside, not only tomorrow, but throughout the rest of the week. And if we do see a rip below 31, I do think it has definitely some more room down. So it's one of like the top stocks on my radar right now for the short term, and it's to the downside. And one thing I want to just say really quickly is if the market explodes up tomorrow off of good inflation data, you probably don't want to be shorting stocks. Obviously make sure that the market is also weak if you do decide to play this one.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point heading into tomorrow as well. But I will definitely keep it on the radar, Mike. It does look like a very interesting play. And on that daily, it does look like if it breaks that support, it has a lot of room back down. I know I was looking at another stock to the upside earlier with Boeing. Meta today is actually very mixed for me. And looking at their daily chart, I also feel like they're at a very mixed spot as far as their price action goes. So they recently have started falling back down after that big gap up with earnings. And I kind of feel like there's a bit of a range play that we could do tomorrow with Meta, depending on how the CPI data goes and how the overall market starts moving. So I'm looking at the range here. There's a nice upper level at 181. If the market does well tomorrow and tech stocks start ripping and Meta breaks 181, I think we could see a very significant maybe push to the upside. So I'll watch for some calls there. But at the same time, if we start falling under 178.50 in the morning, I think we could catch a pretty good day trade down to around 177 or 176.50. So I will be watching for Meta here to break this range one way or the other. But like you said, Mike, it's going to really depend on that overall movement with the CPI data, especially for Meta, who, is a big tech stock.
Yeah. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is WEAT. So I actually talked about this stock yesterday, and basically what's going on with it is moving in a decent way, and basically, it follows the prices of wheat, you could basically say. And what I like about this and other commodity type plays is that sometimes when you have big data come out, whether it be inflation data, whether it be GDP data, whether it be consumer sentiment, you name it, it has the same impact. Commodities tend to move in a different way than your average, big tech stock or just stock in general. And sometimes off of I guess you could say bad inflation news, you could actually see commodities rise. So basically with WEAT, I'm looking at it for a potential play to the upside going forward. It has some resistance right around $8 per share, but once it blasts through that, it has room all the way up to $8.50 and even $8.80 in the short term. And it's down 45% from its highs about a year ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some nice price action on this one.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned that inflation data possibly affecting those commodities. That should be a pretty good play for tomorrow, and I feel like it could definitely get a big move. Same thing goes for any of the commodities, like oil, gold. Some of those can start to really move with this data coming out. So I'll definitely watch WEAT, Mike. I know that is a very major resistance there. And looking at that daily chart, it's just insane to even see how low wheat is right now. If it starts to break there, there's a pretty good chance it could start to move up. So I'll definitely keep it on the radar.
All right, there we go. Well, Tom, it is now time for the momentum plays. With the first one, we have Zoom to the upside.
ZM, yeah, what a nice close here for Zoom. And I like that they bounced off kind of like $75 recently. If they can break out above 77 even tomorrow, I'll watch for a breakout. But, like we talked about, really keep that CPI in the back of your mind too.
Boom. With the next one, we have Intel also to the upside.
INTC, wow, to the upside too. Man, I know these chip stocks have been kind of brutal lately, but yeah, go ahead and make Intel break out above. Wow, they actually have a nice double top right around 28.55.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Spotify, but this one's to the downside.
Uh-oh, yeah, poor Spotify. Joe Rogan's going to be pissed, but go ahead and make Spotify fall under 121. I think that's actually a pretty big support there.
Sounds good. So we are watching Spotify for potential day trade to the downside tomorrow, only if it breaks below the level Tom listed. We are also watching Intel and Zoom for potential day trades to the upside tomorrow, only if it breaks above those upper levels. But it's now time for my favorite part of the video, and that's the big money trade of the day. Today's one is pretty interesting, and it's not your typical setup. We had $950,000, so basically $1 million, go into the OPRA $6.72 strike call options that expire on March 17th of 2023. So OPRA, this stock has been on a tear over the past couple months. It has just been blasting to the upside, and it has like a good amount of positive momentum over like the past couple weeks. Basically, this is like Opera GX. For those of you who don't know, it's like a web browser type company. And there was also some news the other day where Opera GX is looking to integrate ChatGPT onto their platform. So anyways, there's just a lot of hype with this one right now. Plus, you have $950,000 going into some call options on this. The call options are in the money. They have some time to them. So overall, I like the setup. And just to clarify really quickly for our viewers who don't trade options, this is a bullish trade where the big money in this situation wants this stock to go as high as possible.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that is a lot of money put in today, Mike, on a day where this stock went pretty crazy. That's a pretty big jump it actually had this morning. And they might be betting on a continued uptrend here. So I'll definitely be watching this, Mike. I know Opera GX is a pretty cool platform. I actually have used it before. I'll actually pull it up here for you guys real quick. This is kind of what it looks like. So you can see this is like CNBC. You can go to the Palantir article on the left. Sometimes you can see some stuff. You can control like how much RAM you're using and stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff with that browser, Mike. Hopefully it gains some traction. But I'll tell you what, I don't know. There's just something about good old Google Chrome that just it hits the tongue just right. But Opera looks like a pretty cool play. And I will say that was a big jump today. So I'll keep it on the radar, especially with that big move up. Maybe they know something here.
Yeah, you know what? Tom, I would hope they know something if they're putting $1 million into the play.
Yeah, exactly. Especially whenever it's a stock that costs, $7.60. And, I'm not trying to bash on Opera here or anything, but man, they have had quite the volatile past couple years. I mean, look at these swings that this stock has had. I don't know if I've seen a stock with swings. This looks like something like Tilray, to be honest.
It literally looks like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it does, or like a wave. But yeah, it's terrible. I mean, that is a volatile stock. I hope they can start to move back up, though. I will say I like the browser quite a bit, and for anyone who hasn't tried it, I'd recommend trying it at least once. It's pretty cool. Now, keep in mind, I don't know how they are with their privacy sharing or anything like that. So look into that if you're worried about it.
Yeah, but overall with the OPRA play, it's a relatively high risk play, but I actually like it. Anytime you have a stock like this with as volatile as it is, of course you have increased risk, but sometimes with increased risk comes increased reward. So it'll definitely be on my watch list going forward, and I'm pretty excited to see how this one progresses. So we'll see what happens. But Tom, heading into tomorrow, we're going to have a lot of extra volatility because of that inflation report. Do you have any other stocks you're eyeing up pretty closely?
Yeah, I feel like I've said this every single day over the past 4 videos heading up into this event, but I'm going to keep UVXY on the radar once again, and it's kind of hovering right around the $5.10 support, which I've also been talking about a lot. So I'll be watching this one very closely. If the market starts to fall, this could make for some pretty fun day trades in the middle of the day. So I will definitely watch UVXY. Along also, Mike, with WEAT, gold, and oil. I feel like those commodities could maybe have a pretty big move, if we start to. Oh, hang on, they pull up Colgate. Here's crude oil. Sorry, CL is a little weird on Trading View, but overall, I just feel like those commodities could have a pretty big move tomorrow. So watch them very closely and watch that volatility because it's going to be a crazy one, Mike.
Let's go. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to more often. Last but not least, we want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, which is Perdinator in the Stocked Up Discord. You've been in the chat for almost a year now, and you have a ton of activity on the live stream. So huge shout out to you. Thanks so much for the activity and support. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and let's crush it tomorrow.